I'm going to talk very briefly about REO properties because I get asked about REOs on a fairly regular basis. REO stands for real estate owned, and this is when foreclosed properties are repossessed by the lender and owned by the lender. So how the process works is it starts with the homeowner not making payments. The lender then files a notice of default. After the notice of default comes a notice of trustee sale. Then finally, the trustee sale happens. Now that's the auction at the courthouse. So investors go to the courthouse and they bid on properties on the courthouse steps. Sometimes the minimum bid for a property is higher than what an investor will pay, or for whatever reason, a property doesn't sell at the courthouse auction, the trustee sale, and then it reverts back to the lender as repossessed collateral. And at that point, it's an REO, real estate owned, on the balance sheet of the lender. So the reason why agents are interested in this is because lenders need to liquidate that asset. So they hire agents to list these properties. And a listing agent can build a relationship with the lender and then get assigned REO listings, which saves the headache of marketing and prospecting. You just have a listing fall right in your lap. So that's why I get asked about them. Now I see emails, like I'm looking at one now, where they're talking about a wave of REO listings coming and get set up to do REO business and BPOs. I look at this as someone that has done REOs, and we had an REO team at the company for several years. I sold REOs for several years. I know how it is, but before I talk about REOs and how someone can sell them now, I should preface this by saying that there are virtually no REOs now, because you need to think about what REOs come from. They come from foreclosures. Well, we've had just record appreciation year over year in the real estate market. So when that happens, even if someone can't make payments, they're getting equity in their property and they can just sell the home and get out. Where people get in trouble is when values are dropping, they get stuck in their home. They can't make payments, they're underwater or upside down or whatever term you want to use to indicate that there's no equity in the home. And then that's when homeowners have to walk away and properties get repossessed and become REOs. So a lot of things have to happen before REOs exist. There has to be a bad real estate market, there has to be a foreclosure, and usually before foreclosure, an agent will help a seller do a short sale or an investor will buy it. And then if all of that fails, then it goes back to the lender. So as you can imagine, in this unprecedented boom we've had, that has made for a extremely scarce number of REOs. In fact, I looked on Xome, which is xome.com, and that's one of a handful of sites that sells REOs. And our REOs now it used to be in the old days, right after the recession happened in 2008, when they would hire REO agents, these agents would go and just do an old-fashioned listing with them. Well, everything is much more controlled and hands-on by lenders and the servicing companies that help lenders do REO sales. So they're all done on auctions now. If you want to know where to find REOs, you can go to xome.com, xome.com. You can go to hubzu.com, hubzu.com. You can go to auction.com, or you can go on the MLS and just do a real estate owned search, and you'll see that there's very few. In fact, when I did a nationwide search, so I'm looking at a map right now on Xome. Okay, so look at California. Think about California. About 40 million people, the most populous state in the country. There are 2 REOs in the entire state of California, and one is it's some junk land deal in the middle of nowhere, out in the desert. And then there's one more that is also in the middle of nowhere. So even though there may be a few dozen REOs nationwide, think about the magnitude of a few dozen listings spread over an entire nation. Whereas it used to be, there'd be hundreds in Southern California alone, hundreds in any populated metropolitan area. So the notion of REOs now as a viable niche to pursue, I think you should just eliminate immediately, because there are none, and it'll take a very long time for you to come back. And I also think that the potential for a foreclosure market in the future that can create those sort of REOs is unlikely, because as we saw with the pandemic, there was a moratorium on student loan payments, moratorium on evictions, moratorium on foreclosures. If we have anything that even resembles the real estate issues we had in 2008, 9, and 10, rest assured that there will be governments involved far more than ever historically, and there will be moratoriums and delays and forbearances. So I don't think there's a wave of REOs coming either. Now, if you are adamant about selling REOs, then you need to get cozy with the decision makers at these companies, these auction sites, these servicers, and really build a relationship where you're a credible vendor that can help them market their properties and perform BPOs. But there's just such a small volume that your time would be far better spent doing even traditional prospecting, virtually any other type of prospecting. But chasing REOs, I would say, based on the supply and the length of time it'll take before there's any supply, it's not worth pursuing. And then finally, let's fast forward and say there is a time down the road, years from now, where there's been a foreclosure market that's gone on long enough to create a supply of REOs. The listing fee that an REO listing agent gets now is usually around 1% or a little bit higher, and you do a ton of work to earn that very small commission. So even if there was a large supply, it's a poor long-run business model. So I hope I've talked you out of REOs. I don't mean to sound negative, but I just want to be realistic and help guide you to focus your time where you're going to get the highest reward for the effort invested. If you have questions, please leave a comment. Thanks for watching.